Fear is unavoidable in our lives, and we can't control when it arrives. The attitude we choose to handle it is within our reach. We can choose to run from fear or towards it. When we begin to recognize fear as just a thought, just as is success, we can begin to think differently and reinvent our path. In this episode, how small shifts in our mindset can put us on the path to success, no matter what we've experienced. Welcome to Meet the Author Live. I'm your host, John Saunders, founder of Forward Advisory Solutions, a coaching and consultancy firm, and author of The Optimizer, Building and Leading a Team of Serial Innovators. My firm was built on a foundation of over 20 years as an executive distribution leader on Wall Street and a relentless focus on problem solving. This show offers you mission-driven thought leadership wisdom through live conversations with the ability to get your questions answered live in the chat. To start with, please drop in the chat where you're joining us from so we can get a sense of where our audience is and that you know how to use the chat function. In just a little bit, we'll open up questions to you all live so you can ask Lori questions live in the chat. So we want to make sure we can use that function. In today's episode, we'll meet new author Lori McDowell, who just published her book, The Reinvention Mindset. Her book shows us it's never too late to create a new path in your life. Lori McDowell has a PhD and is the CEO of Reimagine U Strategies. She's the author of The Reinvention Mindset and just released her first TedX talk, One Simple Shift to Reinvent Your Reality. She's passionate about helping individuals she's passionate about helping individuals find joy and fulfillment. Lori helps individuals get past roadblocks in their lives and find fulfillment in their careers and their life. She teaches them that they have a choice in the direction of their life, and it's never too late to make a change. Love and caring are at the cornerstones of Lori's business. Lori also owns a Schooley Mitchell business expense reduction franchise. Before stepping out as an entrepreneur, she worked in the fuels and petrochemical industry for 30 plus years. She serves as an advisor on the board of the Hall Group and the nonprofit TENF. Lori received her BS in chemical engineering from the University of Pennsylvania, an MS in environmental engineering from Caltech, and a PhD from University of Delaware. Lori, great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Hi, John. I'm really happy to be here. And I see we've got some people from all over the U.S. here. We've got Cassini from San Francisco, Anthony from New Orleans, Param from Ohio, and Douglas from New York. So we've got a good start in the country. So I'm glad
nice.
to be here.
Doug, great to see you. I just chatted with him the other day, and great to see everybody else. Greg joining us from the great state of New Jersey. I think, is that your original home state? Lori, do I have that?
That's my original. Yes, I'm originally from New Jersey. So hi, Greg. And
nice.
We got Catherine, who I know is from Houston. So nice to see you, Catherine.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, we got a good group joining us from all over the place, and it's fun to have everybody on board here. So thank you for joining us. Please continue to drop in the chat where you're joining us from. And as I said, we'll use the same chat feature to answer questions from you all in just a little bit. So thanks for jumping in there. So Lori, let's dive in here. One of the key themes that comes out repeatedly throughout your book and in your TED Talk is this willingness to explore. Try something new, totally new, that didn't always feel quite right. Where do you think that passion for exploration came from in your life?
You know, I think I had that for a long time. I mean, even as a young child, I felt like I was always willing to try things. But I think it really became important to me when I was a senior in high school. And it was through a tragedy. My little sister, who was in 8th grade at the time, was actually hit by a car. And she was in a coma for a number of months, and she still has traumatic brain injury. So her life was never the same. And through that period, the one thing I realized is that, you know, we never know if there's a tomorrow. Life is short, and that we should just really live like every day is our last day, because we never know when it might be. So it gave me that impetus to try new things, to explore, and just to try to live to the fullest.
Wow. So seeing that just tragedy when you're in high school of your sister and just giving you that new sense of life, and you've carried that with you now for more than a couple of years, right? Yeah. As I read your book, it just blew me away to see some of the adventures that you've been on. And I mean, I've been an NFL fan for many years, and I've never played football with an NFL player. And you got to play with, was it Arian Foster from the Houston Texans? Is that right?
It was with Arian Foster. I'm one of those people that I love sports, and I listen to sports radio in the car. And I won a contest where I got to do a workout with Arian Foster, and it was a trip because I was about probably 50 years old at the time, and there were three of us that won the contest. The other two were these 20-year-old guys who were over 6 feet tall and looked like football players, and Arian Foster, and here I am, 50 years old, and we got to do an obstacle course and throw a football, and it was a blast.
That is so cool. Boys, talk about a dream come true for me. I've been a huge Green Bay Packers fan for many, many years. So that's awesome you got to do that. So the passion for exploration came from, wow, life is short. You never know when that next day is going to arrive or when you're going to have this circumstance that might alter your life radically that you have no plans on, like in the tragic case of your sister. There was another pretty significant tragedy you learned about in your life that you found out about at a 5K run. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that helped you really kind of think about getting your book off the ground?
Yes, yeah. I was I guess it was about a year and a half ago, and I was part of a BNI, a business networking group, and we had someone came in as a guest and told us about a 5K run for her nonprofit. Her name was Dominique, and her nonprofit was called the Phoenix Journey. And I didn't know much about it, but I was available, and I run a lot, and I said, okay, I haven't done a 5K, I'll do this run. So it was a beautiful day. I did the run. I actually did really well. I actually came in second for the women, I think, which was great. I mean, I wasn't fast. There just wasn't a lot of competition. But it was a beautiful day. And after the run, I met a lot of the volunteers, and then Dominique got up there and spoke. And Dominique, she's probably in her 40s now. And if you met her, she's incredibly energetic. She's vibrant. She's funny. And she told the story how about 8 or 9 years prior, she was having all these pains and all these issues, and she didn't know what was going on. She went to all these doctors, and eventually they diagnosed her with MS. And she had, 29 of the 30 symptoms, and she was in a wheelchair. And she was just, she was questioning, did she want to live like this? I mean, she thought this was going to be the rest of her life, and she wasn't even sure she wanted to go on. She had 2 young kids. And she decided, she had a dream one night that God told her that, there was a plan for her life. And she realized that she was going to fight this. And she checked nutrition, holistic medicine. There's a long story about her in the book, so I won't go into all the details. But she decided that she was not going to accept this, that she was not going to take what was given her, and that she could find the life she lived. And today she was able to, basically, she still has MS, but she's able to control all her symptoms. So if you saw her today, you would never know that she was suffering. You would never know that, she couldn't walk at times. She was in a wheelchair. And when I heard that story, it just really moved me, because I realized there are so many people that things happen to them and they just accept it, and they let it ruin their lives. They just, they crumble up and they die. And then there's people like Dominique and other people I met who are not willing to accept that. And they say there's more, and I'm going to get more. And I realized I had done that at times in my life too. And that kind of was the impetus for the book, because, there's so many people who just are living an unfulfilled life, who are just accepting things and figure that's all, oh, well, this is it, I can't do anything else. And I don't believe that's true. I think you can live a life full of joy and fulfillment, and you can really change, you can change how you handle what happens to you.
Having seen 2 colleagues sadly not make it through MS throughout my career, it is, almost unimaginable to me to think that somebody could resolve that issue with a sort of a holistic or sort of non-Western medicine approach. That is just mind blowing to me. And when you think about what do you think it was about Dominique that made her so unique and able to overcome that massive hurdle in life?
Right. For Dominique, I think one of the things it really was faith. She really, she had this vision, this dream where she had a vision from God. And then things just started happening in her life that told her this was the right way to go. So she had this belief, and she said, okay, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to follow it. So there was probably a little bit in her personality that she was a go-getter. But when she tells her story, amazing things like nutrition was a really big part of it. And about 10 years prior, her husband decided out of the blue he was going to become a chef. He switched careers and became a chef, and he was able to help her with the nutrition and the food. And had this never happened 10 years prior, she doesn't know if she would have ever gotten through that. So things just, I really feel things happen for a reason, and we don't know what the reason is. We may never know. It may be years later that we find out, but everything that happens to us for a purpose, and it's exactly where we're supposed to be. And what's amazing about Dominique too is not only now she's started this nonprofit that helps other people. So she's taking what she's learned and helping other people with autoimmune diseases, which is just really impressive to me.
That is just so mind-blowing to me. I mean, I have a very mild version of an autoimmune thing, and I tried a number of different things, and after going to a food as medicine person was finally when I finally saw results. So it's amazing to me that, and by the way, I tried a lot of what Western medicine approaches that just weren't working.
Mm-hmm.
And it was finally when I changed my diet, actually, thanks to a specialist in that space, that really helped me. So that story really resonates with me. And I love this idea of belief and just having the confidence that something better is out there. And one of the stories in your book that just made the hair on my arms stand up and on the back of my neck was the one of your son and what they did with his little league team. Can you share with us how they went from being sort of the bad news bears, am I dating myself now, from the bad news bears to having a pretty good outcome, as I recall from the story, and how that happened?
Yes, yeah, that was my son Hunter when he was 9 years old. He was playing on a 9U baseball team. And, they weren't quite the bad news bears. They were a good team, but they weren't, the best team. They had some talent, and they didn't have a coach. They had a coach, and their coach took a job coaching at college, so he was not available, and they were kind of a lost team. And their coach, Gary Bender, who was part of the Dynasty organization, he was retired. He had been an NFL or an MLB scout. He had coached college, and he decided he was going to coach this 9-year-old team. And Gary had not coached little kids. So he coached them the way he knew how to coach them. And from the day he took over, he told this group of 9 and 10-year-old boys that we're going to win the state championship. And that was their goal. And he coached them like that. And he basically treated them like they were in high school. I mean, they learned plays like they were in high school. They had workouts, and through the entire year, that was their goal, and they believed it. Now, the parents, we didn't really believe. We're like, okay, well, this is nice. But we just watched them get better. And it was amazing at the state championship. We won all our pool games, but we weren't the top seed. So we had to play another team in the semifinals. And on paper, that team was much better than us. They had kids that could hit home runs. They had, they were a better team on paper. And our team just played smart. I mean, we stole bases, we bunted, and we beat them with small ball. And all of a sudden, like, the parents started to believe. And then the final game, we actually won, and my son Hunter pitched, and he was not the best pitcher on the team. He was okay, but Gary said, I feel like Hunter's going to pitch. And I was like, are you sure? Like, I didn't. And Hunter pitched a shutout, and we won the game 9-0, and we won the state championship. And it just really showed the power of belief, because those little boys, they didn't do it. Gary told them they were going to win, and they all believed it.
He set an audacious goal for them, continued to talk about it, put that as a focus for them, and gave them his own confidence, instilled confidence in them that they could do it. That is so incredible. And for those kids who, sorry for using the bad news bears analogy, but they weren't the best team in the league, but to go from kind of doing this, wanting to do it, but not being great, to winning the whole thing is pretty mind-blowing over the course of dozens and dozens of games. I had the great privilege to meet NFL coach Mike Shanahan at an event at his restaurant a couple of years ago. And I asked him, like, what does it take to be a successful coach? And he said, first, you got to get your guys trained up, which if they're in the NFL, they're probably pretty good, but you got to get them, in fighting shape, if you will. And then you got to get them to believe they can win. And here I was blown away by that, thinking, like, here's these professionals playing at the highest levels. You're talking about 9-year-olds, right? These are grown adults in their 20s and 30s playing. And he said, you got to get them to believe they can win. You talk about a big mindset shift, because so many times believing you can win is a fear, oftentimes a fear of failure. And, you have a really unique outlook on fear. What does that look like for you, given that you've played, gone ziplining, played football with Arian Foster, right? How do you think about fear?
Yeah, I think of fear is, for me, fear is something I need to overcome, something that, it's kind of a warning. Fear says, okay, this is dangerous. So it tells me I need to pay attention. But it doesn't tell me, it doesn't stop me. I mean, if I do things specifically because I find them scary. I mean, sometimes things like zip line. I'm afraid of heights, but I zip lined. I did a ropes course in Las Vegas last year where I was terrified and I wanted to turn around, but that fear motivated me. And I think fear, the opposite, fear is supposed to be a warning sign. It's supposed to be like a hot stove. You touch it and you say, okay, it's hot, don't touch it. But so many of us live in fear. We don't see it as a warning, like be careful, make a plan. We see it as a way where we stick. And when you live in fear, you're not doing things that can get you to success. And when you look at fear and you flip to the other side, that is success. That's achievement. That's being able to do something amazing. And you can't do anything amazing until you get over the fear. If you let the fear stop you, you're just going to stay there. And, I think everybody has their fears. We all have, I mean, people who don't have fear, you should have some fear, but you shouldn't let it keep you there. You say, okay, I'm doing something where it's dangerous. I should have a little fear. Let me put on the right equipment and let me be careful. And then let's do it. And I think if you live your life like that, you'll get so much more out of life and you'll have so many more opportunities and so much more success.
I really appreciate that thought. And I think it was maybe Lisa, was it Lisa Pearson?
Yeah,
That
Lisa
you interviewed?
Peterson.
Or Peterson,
Hmm.
excuse me, who shared this thought that, it kind of coalesced this idea, I think, for you, which was fear is just a thought and shows success. And whichever one you let enter your brain first and follow and believe is what's going to happen. And I so appreciate that and how you've approached life in this sense. And no doubt you've faced fear a few times. You talked about ziplining, these things you've done, but most recently you took this pretty big stage. What was that like? What was that story like for you?
Yeah, and fear is still here. I still face fears a lot. I wake up some morning terrified that, oh, what am I doing? But yeah, I was, it was a month before I was 59 years old and 11 months. And I was fired from a job I had for 11 years, and a job I planned to keep until I retired. I wasn't planning to start my own business, and it was a rather awful firing. I don't want to go into all the details, but I drove to a meeting and they fired me when I got there, and I had to turn around and drive 4 hours back home. And that was fear. I was like, oh my God, who's going to hire me? I'm almost 60. It was, how could they do this to me? It was, how am I going to pay the bill? It was fear. And some way on that ride home, I came to the realization that I don't have to go to work tomorrow. And when I had that, it was like, I don't have to go to work tomorrow. And I felt happy and I felt lighter. And I realized that I was ready to leave that job, that I wasn't really fulfilled, that I was just kind of going through the motions. It wasn't really what was best for me, but it was easy and I was doing it. And no, getting that feeling that I was, okay, I'm free. I can do whatever I want. And that's when I started thinking, well, what do I want to do now? And I didn't know at first. I was like, God, I don't know what I want to do. And I always wanted to write a book. And I talked to a friend of mine, Shinjin Zhao, who had just written a book. And I asked him, what made you write a book? And after that, I was like, well, I have time now. I'll write a book. And that's when I started thinking about, okay, what am I going to write about? And I looked at the people I knew and the people I could talk to and the stories I had. And that's where the Reinvention Mindset came. And from there, I went to speaking, and then I took coaching training so that I could coach people through what I wrote in the book and through what I learned. So
Absolutely incredible. And the journey continues for you. And it most recently landed you, I said it in the introduction, on the TED stage, which I think for many of us is just one of these things that we never considered or even thought could happen. And if God forbid it actually ever did happen, what's it like standing on that red circle in front of all those people? What was that journey like for you? And not
that
to
was,
mention the
yeah, that was
application
really,
process, right? That's no easy task either.
yeah, that was, a TEDx talk. You hear people and you're like, oh, I want to do that someday. And it's kind of far away. And then as I started speaking, realized, okay, I can try to find out. Maybe I'll do a TEDx talk. And I took a little class on, how to get a TEDx talk that told you a little bit about the application and how to bring up a talk. And then I just started searching for people involved in TEDx online. And I found someone in Houston who was doing a class on just a little training to get ready for a TEDx talk. And I took his short training and we kept in touch, and he ended up becoming an organizer of a TEDx event, and I was invited to give a talk there, which was really exciting because I had set a goal for myself to have a talk by November, and I had it in May, so I was ahead of schedule. And
Well
it
done.
was an
Well done.
it was an amazing experience. I can't say enough good things about the whole TEDx organization. I mean, just the volunteers, the people, from the minute you walked in the door, or even before that, the coaching they gave you. My coach was amazing. The other women who were giving, our group happened to be all women. I don't know why, it just turned out that way, but the other women giving the talks were all amazing, the volunteers, and it was a great experience. Just standing on that red dot, you have a little bit of fear, but it's an exciting fear.
One of the things that was fun about your TED talk is just the story in there, the stories you shared in there about believing, but two, I think there's also I think you came out on the stage dancing, if I recall correctly, and music has played such a key part in your life. How have you seen music impact you?
Yeah, I think music is just music makes me happy. Music makes me calm. Music makes me less stress. And I've seen, the TEDx music makes you, I don't know, it just makes life better. It helps me. And, one of the stories in the book, actually, I was at a Guns N' Roses concert and I was dancing. And then a thought popped into my head, like, God, do I look stupid? And I realized, like, why do I care if I look stupid? I'm here with a bunch of people at a Guns N' Roses concert. Who cares if I look stupid? I'm having fun. And from that, I started writing a chapter in the book. So I actually started taking notes in a little notebook, and I'm, at the concert taking notes, and I ran to the bathroom and I'm taking notes on my phone. And it was just, amazing that I wrote a chapter in the book at a Guns N' Roses concert, which is really shows
And
how music has but I have a chapter in the book where I talk about music. I share my playlist that it, when I'm having a bad day, music makes all the difference.
I mean, I love that. And was this Guns N' Roses concert 20 or 30 years ago, or how long ago was it?
No, this was a recent one. This was just last year. So
Just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. This was
yeah, no,
Lori
this was in
McDowell.
Houston last summer. So
And what I love about your story is, you have, had this amazing career, and yet here you are, some might say a little bit later in some career, and you continue to reinvent yourself and reimagine what your future looks like, and go out and do things like go to a Guns N' Roses concert while you're writing a book, which is so awesome. And I know you talk about your playlist in the book. And by the way, we're getting a few more notes in the chat here. I just want to share. Aaron Robinson put a note in there. Very nice. I don't know. Put that note in there. Sally Dwyer, hello from Houston. Great to see you. Jennifer Roth, thank you for joining us, Jennifer, all the way from Connecticut, if I'm thinking of the right Jennifer Roth there. Great to see you on there. Staying with the theme of music for a minute, has played such a key element in your life. What does the top of your playlist look like? Who's on the top of the batting order there?
I think I'm trying to remember the top. The top song is
It was something about dancing, as I recall.
Leanne Womack, I Hope You Dance, I think was the number one song on there. Miley Cyrus, The Climb is on there. So they're just motivational songs that are a lot of fun. And the words just have a lot of meaning. There's a song on there called by Blue October called Jump Rope, that talks about how life is like, up, down, life is like a jump rope. And and it is, because even if, I'm very happy, I'm really excited, I love my life, but that doesn't mean that there's not bad things that happen. It's just, doesn't mean you don't have bad days. It just means you just deal with them, and they don't affect you as much as they could.
In this Hope You Can Dance song, I know in the conversations we've had leading up to today, it certainly played a key message in your life. What is the message from that song that you want people to know?
Yeah, the message is, and I don't know if you're familiar with the song, but the song is the chorus is, when you have a chance to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. And it talks about, how when one door closes, another door opens, and, always find the wonder in the world, and just always look on the positive side, and that, don't sit your life out, dance. And when you do that, you get so much more opportunity.
I love that message, right? And certainly your journey has embraced that philosophy to a T. So I love that that song has been with you for so many years and you continue to live it and continue to reinvent yourself, which is so, so cool. Um, you have this amazing story you shared. And by the way, I think we just had our first, where'd it go? There it is. We had our first international guest calling in, Daniel from
Hi,
Bogota.
Daniel.
Great to see you, and a little support here from Pia jumping on board here. And Rich just dropped a comment in there. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to
Hi,
have
Rich.
We are going to open up some questions for you all in just a couple of minutes. So please start to load those into the chat, and we'll get to those in just a minute here. So let's go to that South Beach story you told. Right, South Beach. Oftentimes, I know I've been there a couple of times, and you always feel like it's just filled with all the lovely people in the world, right? Which can be a bit intimidating.
Yes.
But you had a pretty interesting experience at a nightclub there. What happened there, Lori?
Yeah, and I talk about this in the TEDx talk as well as the book. But last summer, I took my mom, Phyllis, for her 80th birthday on her cruise. And my mom is very integral in the book. When I talk about the reinvention mindset, my mom is a wonderful person, but she doesn't have a reinvention mindset. She's a little bit stuck. And I tried to get her out of this. So she decided to go on a cruise. And as an 8-year-old, I think that's very impressive. So I went to Miami, and the night before the cruise, we stayed at this beautiful South Beach hotel. And it was trendy. And I think we were probably older than everyone else in the hotel by at least 30 years. I mean, but it was a beautiful hotel. It was a nice experience. And I was feeling, we decided we were going to go out to dinner and have a drink in the bar. And I was in my room trying to get dressed, and I'm pulling clothes out of my suitcase and realizing nothing in my suitcase is going to look, will fit in this beautiful bar down there. I just didn't have an outfit. And then I finally said, like, Lori, you're 60 years old. You're a PhD chemical engineer. There's probably not an outfit in the world that's going to make you fit in a South Beach hotel. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
What a brilliant moment of awareness.
So I put on some comfortable, one of my favorite dresses, comfortable clothes, and my mom and I went out. We had a drink at the bar. We had a nice dinner, and my mom went to bed, and I decided to go sit in the bar and have another drink. And at this point, it's a Friday night. It's about midnight. So the bar is very crowded, and they're all dressed to the nines, beautiful clothes, beautiful, having fun. And I found a seat at the bar, and there was a very young bartender. He was really cute. He was probably in his 20s. And I just looked around, listened to the music, and started taking notes in a little notebook. And the bartender was being friendly and asked me, well, what are you writing? And I said, oh, I'm taking notes for my book. And he's like, oh, you're writing a book. And he started asking me all these questions about it. And then some other people came over and asked, oh, what's your book about? And suddenly I had about 7 or 8 people sitting in the bar asking me questions about the book. And it was just like, wow, I'm sitting in this beautiful, trendy bar with all these young people in their amazing clothes. And I'm the center of attention, and they're interested in me. And it was just like, it brought the idea that I was happy, I was content, I was excited, and people saw me that way. Whereas had I been sitting in that bar feeling like I didn't belong, worrying, people wouldn't see me that way. So you can really change your reality, because when you feel and believe that you're amazing and that you belong somewhere, the world will see you that way, and they'll treat you that way. And it can really change. It can change everything. Like suddenly I was in this South Beach bar, and I felt like I'm an author, and I'm telling people about my book, and they were all impressed and had lots of questions. And it was just a great night.
That is amazing. I think Rich tried to capture some of your thoughts here. Lori's natural just do it energy, so candid about fear and how she is not allowed to stop her. So refreshing, such a wonderful voice and example of the reinvention mindset. Thank you, Lori, for reminding us to choose to dance. Love it. And we've got Irene here throwing a little shade at, I guess, New Jersey. Alexander Spano, great to see you on here, Alexander, from New Jersey. Lovely all to see you. And by the way, I put Lori's TED Talk in the chat here if you want to check it out. One simple mindset shift to change your reality. Do I have that right somewhere? I think I'm in the ballpark.
One simple shift to change your reality, to reinvent reality, something
or
like
reinvent
that.
your reality. Thank you. And you have a great way to capture what you just shared about the Miami story, which I really appreciate. And I think it's the title of one of the chapters is people see you as you feel. right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, people see what you feel. And yeah, and I just think if really, would you feel inside you when you're feeling confident, people see you that way. When you're feeling depressed and unhappy and questioning yourself, then people see you that way. And that's why you don't get what you want. You don't get what you're looking for because everybody sees that person. So if you change the way you feel and you change how you feel on the inside, there's a good thing it's going to show on the outside. And that's how people are going to react to you.
So powerful, right? I think of that night in particular, right? You could have said, "Oh my, none of my clothes seem to be a good fit for this whole South Beach setup. I'm just gonna sit in my room and not hang out." And not only did you not just say, "You know what, I'm just gonna go be me," and project just me as I am, as authentically as I can, and go hang out and see all these people. People were totally drawn to you and what you're doing, and you had the belief, you had the confidence, you overcame that fear and uncomfortableness, which just is such a recurring theme in your life. I really appreciate that. So thank you for sharing that story. We've got a few more people jumping in. Sheldon, great to see you. Thanks for jumping on here all the way from Massachusetts. And Rich had a follow-up comment for here. We can truly enjoy being enjoyed. Thank you, Lori. What a great message. So we got two more questions. And we're going to jump over to the audience questions. So please put those in the chat if you have one you'd like to ask Lori. So you have this incredible drive to go out and change the world. Where do you think that came from?
Oh, that's a good, that's a good question. And I just feel like so many people are living, I hate to see people who are not happy, who just feel like they're, not living the life they desire. And I feel like they can live a different world. They don't have to live that, and they just don't realize how. And people are stuck because they just don't know what to do. And I just feel like I've had so much joy in my life that I want everybody else to have joy. And you can find joy no matter where you can. I mean, as a child, I was chubby. I was made fun of. I had bad hair. My nickname was 2-Ton Tori. Because my maiden name was Lori Tori, so they used to call me 2-Ton Tori. And
Brutal.
I wasn't popular, but even there, I let that. I was like, okay, I'll let that roll off. But then I realized that was bringing me as an adult. That was leading me to self-doubts and to worries, and it was causing me to not achieve my goals because I would always question myself. I had the imposter syndrome, and for no apparent reason, but I was living in that person who was, still, I look in the mirror and I still saw myself as the chubby 12-year-old with the bad hair and being made fun of. And I think a lot of people, we have stuff that, somewhere in our childhood or somewhere in our life, something that's holding us back. And when we learn to overcome that, there's just so much more to life. And it's just, I think the world's an amazing place, and you can find amazing things anywhere you look for them, but you have to be willing to look for them, and you have to be willing to experience them. And that's really, I want everyone to experience them, because I think that just makes the whole world a happier place, and it makes people happy. People are fun to be around, and content people do so much more. So, I mean, if we're all joyful, we're going to solve problems. We're going to just do amazing things.
There is a different path in life. We can always choose to take it or not, right? And from this, painful start in your life where kids were poking fun at you, here you are, find yourself fast forward years later on the TEDx stage, being surrounded by people very interested in your story at a swanky South Beach bar. I mean, it's just incredible. You've always just chose the path that is the one you want. And it certainly hasn't been easy every time, but you found a way to do it and found that way to face that fear and step through it, and let that fear be a motivator to you rather than a detractor. I so love that. If you do want to get a copy of Lori's book, I did just drop the link in the chat, the link into the chat there for everybody. If you want to go out and grab a copy, definitely go do that. It is on Amazon now and wherever you buy books online. And for a limited time, it's you can get it for $2.99, the ebook copy. So I definitely encourage you to not only get your own copy of it, but go out and share it with a few friends of yours that need to hear this story, right? I'm sure all of us know someone or a few people out there that are feeling a little stuck, that have this fear sitting in front of us that we can't seem to break through. So Lori's created this opportunity to go out and make it easy for you to go out and share that story with your friends and colleagues today. Lori, last couple of questions here, and we'll move on to the audience questions. Um, so many times when we set out to write a book, it begins with one premise, but as we research, interview people, do our own writing, it continues to evolve, and oftentimes there's some pretty significant learning out there. What is it you'd say you learned what is it you learned from writing the book?
Yeah, what I learned from writing the book was to really listen to my intuition. Um, I felt like, when I started writing the book, I wasn't really sure where it was going to go. And I just followed what was in my head. I interviewed people who I thought would be really interesting. When I wrote the book, I love reading self-help books, but I hate reading a self-help book that feels like work. So when I wrote the book, I wanted the book to be easy to read, fun to read, but also something that could help people. And I think I've achieved. It's very conversational. It's kind of a fun book to read. You might laugh, you might cry, and you'll definitely learn something. But I wasn't sure, I questioned during the whole book, do I have something to say? Will people care? Will I have a good book? And I just followed my intuition. And that's really what I learned, because after I wrote the book, I became a certified coach. And I realized that a lot of the stuff that I put in the book was what I was learning in these periods. It's like, okay, I already knew this. I just had to trust myself. So I think in writing the book, kind of like the hair club for men, I'm not just the owner, I'm a client. I read the book and I learn stuff from it for myself. And I trusted what was inside myself, and it took me to the right place. And that's really what I learned there.
Trusting your intuition, having that confidence, and then, but the other theme in here that's kind of hiding underneath you all is, you talked a lot about coaching, learning, hiring people to help you, all of these things. You continue to grow as a human, and I think that's part of this exploration mindset that you have that I've so appreciated about you and getting to know you over the last number of weeks. And, I think it feels like it brings us back to this idea of exploration we started the show with, which is, early on, your exploration was about learning something new, trying a different path. How has your thinking or your view on exploration evolved over time?
Yeah, I think the exploration has evolved in that, the exploration really starts with you. And that's what I think is really important. We can all reinvent ourselves at any time. We can all change our lives. But it really has to start by getting to know ourselves, by understanding who you are, why you do something, why you want this. And then once you understand and you explore yourself, it becomes easy to explore where you want to go, because then you know your why, you know your goals, and you know what's holding you back. And getting into, realizing what's holding you back, because often the things that are holding us back are things inside our own head. They're not something outside of us. They're inside of us. They're in our brain. They're beliefs that are not true. They're limiting decisions. And you figure out what you need to know yourself, and figure out, what's missing them? Why am I here? Where do I want to be? You may even decide I'm exactly where I want to be, but it's your decision at that point. You've looked at it and you said, hey, I love my life. I'm happy. I don't want to change. And that's great. But if you don't ask yourself those questions, you're never really confident in that.
Having those moments of self-discovery, understanding what our values are, what's meaningful to us, and having that frank discussion with ourselves is so important to finding that journey ahead. And I love that you just continue to learn and grow, went out and got that coaching designation. I can't encourage folks enough. If you want to learn more about how Lori might help shape your journey, go to booklori.com, which is on the page here today. And I'll drop her link in the chat as well if you want to grab some time with her to see if there's a good fit for working with Lori here today. And definitely can't encourage you enough to go out and get her book. It is filled with a number of lessons. It's really an accessibly written book filled with stories, and one that's just really has been a joy to read for me on that front. Thank you for sharing that thought, Lori. With that, I want to jump over to some audience questions and see where we are at that. So continue to load those in there. The first one that I saw pop into one of the chats is, you mentioned imposter syndrome as you went about writing the book. Lori, what does that look like for you, and how do you overcome that?
Okay, can you repeat that? I lost the audio for a minute.
Oh, the question was around imposter syndrome. You talked about that when you were writing the book, and it was probably hidden in some of the other stories that you told. How do you think about imposter syndrome, and how do you overcome it?
Yeah, I think when you have to look at imposter syndrome, it's really important to realize that everyone has it to a certain degree. We all have it. And, we can't control what happens to us. We can't control any of the things around us, but we can control what we do with it. And, just like that story of the 9-year-old boys, you have to believe and just knowing that you have complete control over what you do, whatever happens to you. And if you believe in yourself, those are those limits you set. Imposter syndrome is normal. It's just a thing that happens. So we all, you have self-doubts. You feel, I mean, I used to grow up, I went to school because this would be the granddad that I was straight A's, but it's still not logical. It's just something that we all have, and just realizing it's not logical, it's not real, it's in our head, and we have the power to overcome it. And it's all, everyone has inside of us everything we need. And when we realize that, then we don't care what anybody else does. So it's like, I don't care if you think I'm an imposter, because I know I'm not. And once you know you're not, then everybody else's opinion doesn't matter anymore.
So important to have that belief, to have that confidence, and recognize everyone else around us is dealing with it as well. And once we can accept that fact or realize that that's a reality, it just makes life so much easier. There's few, probably I would argue maybe no one out there that doesn't have some level of imposter syndrome, right? I've talked to so many people in my life. I mean, I spent years on the
Right.
road doing presentations, and before every presentation I ever did, I was often nervous and thinking, well, what am I doing here? Why is this group want to hear my story? And so I love that you've really embraced that
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah, and
Um,
we're often not even worrying about something that's real. We're not worried about what people do think about us. We're worried about what they might think about us. And like when you say that out loud, it just sounds really dumb. Like I'm worrying myself and I'm making myself unhappy because of what somebody else might think. And it's like, well, but they might not think that, and it's like, when you think about it, when you say it like that, it just doesn't make sense. It's not like somebody saying it. It's like you're worried. And chances are, if you ever ask them, if you're worried that somebody thinks something about you and you ask them, they're like, what are you talking about? I'm not thinking that at all. I think you're amazing.
it is right. And one of the lines I think you shared in the book was something to the effect of, "Why would I let what I think somebody else might be considering stifle my joy?" Right? Did I think I captured that,
Hmm.
the essence of it, right?
Yes.
And so many times we create this narrative in our minds about the way someone looked at us, or the way maybe something they said that they might have been distracted. They might have been thinking about something else, right? And it wasn't even focused, whatever they said or reacted to, however they reacted or said. It wasn't even about us, but we make it all about ourselves. I remember hearing a comedian one time getting
Hmm.
interviewed, and he was saying that, I could be having a great show and everyone's laughing, having a good time, but I'll focus in on that one guy that's sitting there with like an angry look on his face, not laughing, and it'll completely distract me in the show, right? And meanwhile, maybe the guy has got some personal issues going on or what have you. Uh, another question that popped up, I wanted
Right.
that I thought the audience wanted to get from you was, you know, oftentimes with reinvention, we think there's this silver bullet out there, right? But can you speak to that a little bit? How is reinvention? How do you think about it in terms of how you embrace it in life? It's not really a one and done circumstance, I guess, is what I'm thinking.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Reinvention. I mean, I think of reinvention really as a journey, and taking the first step is the hardest part. I mean, once you take that first step, you started reinventing yourself, and you're probably never going to be done. But once you start and you embrace change, then that just opens up all the possibilities. I mean, I've reinvented myself, and in a year, I might next year decide I want to do something completely different. I don't know. But it's starting on the journey, and it's going to take hard work. It's not like you say, okay, I have a positive mindset. I want to reinvent myself. I believe in myself, and it's just going to happen. You still have to put in the work. You still have to do the time. You still have to, you can't just say, I want to write a book and have a book pop up. Write the book. You believe you can write a book. You won't write the book, and you won't make the decision. So I think it's a journey. You're never going to be done. It's always, what's next, but just making that first step is the most important.
So important to take that first step to get past that initial fear, because so many times, as you shared, on the other side of fear is success. A couple other audience questions, then we're going to jump over the rapid fire ones here. So here's one from Anthony Fragosi. Lori, I'm a chemical engineer, near and dear to your heart, right? And an introvert for my whole life. Welcome all the introverts. But as I have been getting closer to retirement, I seem to be more willing to reach out and encourage our younger generation to embrace going into STEM field. How can we instill concepts in your book into the younger generation? Thanks for that question,
Yeah,
Anthony.
that's a great question, Anthony. And it's, I mean, most of the people I work with are over 40, but I actually have a coaching program aimed at the younger generation, either high school to college or college to high school, because they need to know that they too need to know themselves at that young age. They need to examine themselves, and they need to accept that this is my life and I need to live it in a way that is going to make me happy. And for some of those, STEM is the answer because it's a great career. I love the career. And for some of those, it's not, but it has to be their journey. Because I think so many young people feel like, well, I don't know what I want, so I don't do anything. And I think, the younger generation know that you don't have to know what you want. You need to try stuff, you need to question, you need to make sure that it's your way. You're not going to be satisfied if you do what your counselor or your parents or society tells you need to do. You need to make sure that that's something you want to do as well. And then you just need to try it, because you're not stuck forever. I mean, you can go into a field, and if you don't like it, you can change it. It's never too late to change. It's never too early if you're unhappy. So I think that's one of the concepts, just trying to make the younger generation realize that you're not necessarily picking the path for the rest of your life. You're trying what sounds good. And if you can change it, there's not failure, there's just learning. So if you never fail, you learn something. And as long as you learn from, the learning might be as simple as, I learned that I don't like this. You learn something. Now you can try something else. And I think that's really important, that, you don't have to wait till you're 60 to learn what I learned. You can start learning it when you're 18, 20, 25, and that, there are endless possibilities, and you just need to explore them and find the one that lights you up and that brings you joy and passion and that you really want to do. And it doesn't have to last forever. You can do one for 5 years, 10 years. And then if you want to change, you can change.
Be an explorer, be curious, don't be afraid to try something new, and know that whatever you pick doesn't have to be the thing you do for the rest of your life, right? And know that each thing you do is merely a learning experience and a gift, right? And of learning, as opposed to a failure. So many times when we fail, we can beat ourselves up, as opposed to say, all right, how do I learn from this, be a bit resilient, and move forward? So appreciate that. One more question here from Rich, and we'll jump to the rapid fire. Rich Kozak, thank you for the question, Rich. Lori, to what extent has your strong faith and then your credentials in neuroscience served you on your journey to be such a powerfully insightful coach?
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Rich. Faith, that's a great question, because that's the one thing that, myself personally, as well as all the people I ever met and that I interviewed in my book, the people that have been really successful, faith has been so important to them. We can all change our lives. We can all reinvent ourselves. We can do so much, but we can't do it alone. And believing in a higher power, whether you believe in God, I mean, for me, it's God, but whether it's God, whether it's the creator, whether it's earth, having someone bigger than yourself, a higher power that supports you, that guides you, is really important, because that helps you feel like you're not alone. And that can not only connects you, to God, but it connects you to the world. And there are so many people that are willing to help us. And so many times where we don't ask, or we don't think we deserve help, or we don't accept help. And I mean, the world is an abundant place. I mean, we have so much God-given abundance about us, and we live in scarcity so often because we're always worried about what we don't have or what we can't get. And if we just worrying about what we have and take help from other people, it'll really help us. As far as the neuroscience, it's really, as a chemical engineer, I mean, I spent most of my life, living on one half of my brain. I mean, it was facts and numbers and all. And then in coaching, I spend a lot more time on the other side of my brain. And realizing that there's actually, some science behind it has really, I think having the two sides of my brain being integrated, the unconscious mind, the creative side, and the scientific side has really allowed me to help people see that, there is science and there is facts behind the fact that so much that we can control things with what goes on in our head, and that we can limit ourselves based on our thoughts, and we could achieve things based on our thoughts. And there's science, there is science. It's not just something that someone created. And there's actually, if you look at, the law of attraction, even some of these scientific theories that science can actually change the outcome of an experiment based on what they believe. I mean, there's been studies on that. In the TED Talk, I talk about how emotions are contagious, and that really we can change someone's behavior because our emotions are contagious. So that's really helped me, having both, the chemical engineering and the NLP, the timeline therapy, the quantum energy, and integrating the two of them has helped me in my coaching practice, because I can coach scientists and engineers, but also explain that there's so much more in their head that they didn't learn in their chemical engineering or their engineering degrees.
The idea that we can retrain our brains is so amazing to me. I didn't really even figure this out until just a couple of years ago myself, and continue to learn about it. So I so appreciate you sharing that thought, and thanks for that question, Rich, because it is we the way we react to something, right? We can, like we've been trained since mankind has been around, right? I need to be afraid because there's maybe a tiger over here that's going to attack me, right? And we don't live in that world anymore, but we still have that initial reaction so many times of fear. And then we go into this world of scarcity that you talked about. So thank you so much for sharing that thought. Lori, with that, let's dive into the rapid fire questions, and we'll wrap it up. You ready to jump into the rapid fire questions?
Sure.
Let's, always my favorite question to start with. What is your favorite thing to cook?
My favorite thing to cook, I think, is lasagna. I grew up in an Italian family, and I make a pretty good lasagna. I like to cook everything, so I love cooking, but lasagna is probably one of my favorites.
I'm getting hungry for lunch already. First concert you went to?
I went to see Yes. It's dating me, since a lot of people probably don't even know who Yes is, but Yes at Madison Square Garden in New York City.
Shout out to MSG. I love it. Last photo on your phone.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to cheat on that one.
Right.
The last photo. Let's see. The last photo on my phone is actually a cappuccino that I got yesterday that had a really pretty drawing in it. So.
And is it already? I guess more importantly, a follow up. Is it already on your Instagram page?
It's not yet. So it's just on my phone.
It's time. I just looked at mine too, and it's a little household project I'm working on right now. That's funny. Favorite song to sing?
Jimmy Cliff, The Harder They Come.
Such a good one. I've been putting that on the post we've been making about the interview here today. What is the most audacious goal for your book?
Most audacious goal would be to get on Oprah's book list.
Oprah, are you listening? Love that. I think we already talked about this, but most unique writing location, or memorable.
Probably would have to be the bathroom at a Guns N' Roses concert.
I'd say that qualifies.
Yeah.
Most memorable
bar
moment
in South Beach, Miami could fit too.
Well, I was going to say most memorable, right? And so maybe the South Beach story. So if you would, Lori, describe your writing journey in 5 words for us.
I would wake up early on weekends and write Saturday and Sunday morning. I try to do at least a chapter a day. Some days I did 2, and I'd wake up before anyone else was awake and just go write. And that's pretty much how I wrote the book. So
Get up Saturday and write. Is that those the 5 words?
That's pretty much, yeah. I guess I didn't say 5 words, but yeah, get up Saturday and write.
Maybe wouldn't fit in the haiku rules, but certainly for the 5 letters. I love that. Such an incredible journey, such a story you have to tell. I love this theme of just always exploring, facing our fears, right? Not letting them dictate our lives, and pushing ahead and finding the path that you, really want to live. With that, Lori, what is your closing thoughts you'd like to leave for our listeners?
Yeah, I guess I would just like to tell everyone that, wherever you are today, whether you're happy, whether you're miserable, whether you're the best place you ever want to be, it's exactly where you're meant to be. Wherever we all are is exactly where we're supposed to be today. And we all have everything we need inside of us to get wherever we want to go, whether we have it or we know where we can get it. So it's really then just up to you to decide, or do you want to take that next step? Do you want to reinvent yourself? Do you want to find the life that's full of joy and fulfillment? And whether it's a big change or a little change, you can all do it. Anyone can do it.
And so often in the short term, it feels like that easy choice, which is not doing something, or that choice that feels like the easy one of not doing something, just ends up, it can build up and build up and just create more pain and anxiousness for us in our lives. So I so appreciate your message of leaning into that discomfort, pushing ahead, finding the other side of that coin of fear, which is success, and building that path that you really want. If you know someone out there, and I'm speaking to our listeners now, if you know someone out there who's feeling stuck, go out and get a copy. As I said, Lori's got it at a limited time, the ebook on Amazon for $2.99. Get a copy for yourself and go get a copy for friends of yours who need to hear this story and find that new journey to reinvention. Lori, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for the work you do in making reinvention accessible, because so often it feels out of reach. And just hearing your story, it really helps us see that it's not so far out of reach. It's just such oftentimes a shift in mindset. So thank you for sharing your story with me and the Meet the Author Live audience. And thank you to our listeners for joining this.
John. It was really great to be here.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. And I want to say thanks to our listeners for joining this episode of Meet the Author Live. Definitely check out Lori's new book, The Reinvention Mindset, wherever you buy books online, and visit her website to learn more about her and her TED Talk at reimagineu.net, and connect with me at JCS_optimizer to stay current on upcoming live events. The next call will showcase previous guest Gerard Seitz and his learnings from a recent trip to Ukraine. Thanks again for joining us. I'm your host, John Saunders. Keep moving forward.